Well, it's time to stain some boards. And rather than, I don't know, trying to think of an interesting way to do this for you. But so instead, I thought, what if I told how I got started in construction? It might be an encouragement to some of you folks that are looking at getting into starting your own business. Or maybe you can remember when you were in business and just starting out and what it was like for you. Might bring back some memories. So I'm going to stain all these boards. I've been trying to find, I've been staining them with a rag, and it's slower than death. So I'm trying to find a better, faster way to do it, rather than just use a rag and put it on. So I think I'm going to use a brush. I've already stirred up the stain. And the problem I was having was filling the beads, the little grooves, with a rag to work it in there. So as an experiment, well, that obviously already I can tell. Wow, I struggled for over half an hour putting the stain in these grooves on maybe a dozen boards. The brush is a lot quicker, and then I'll go over this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk and work at the same time. Go over it with a rag. So there, I got it drenched. My concern is I don't want to get more on than I did on all the others, and already that may be an issue. Maybe we'll go, okay, I got that one. I think that will be good. One, and I have, wow, how many, 24, I have about 500 of these to do. So I thought it'd be a good time to tell a story. So back in the late 1980s is when I started my construction business. I had been around the construction industry for a long time. I had driven truck, 10-wheeler cherry picker for a precast company delivering septic tanks and well tiles and all kinds of related products that were precast. And in my travels, I came across a lot of builders, things like that, and I just thought, maybe this is something a direction I would like to go in instead. It seems like maybe I'll get a buildup on the excess on the rag, and I can wipe it onto the next one, maybe. Yeah. So, back in the late 80s, I met with a good friend of mine who was HR, human resources boss of Tasty Cake. Ever heard of Tasty Cake down in, I think it was Pennsylvania? What a great guy. Anyway, he offered some sound advice. First of all, started out, what would you like to do? I said, well, I really like the construction industry, but I'd like to specialize in a certain field. But I'm not sure what that is. And so he says, well, what do you, he says, do you have any ideas? I said, yeah, I'd like to run an insert in the paper and just throw out some prices for different things. So I figured up how much it would cost. I did a little wallpapering at the time, how much it would cost to wallpaper a room, for instance. And so I did that. I developed a sheet that was like a coupon flyer that would be in the newspaper, and someone could look at it and say, "Oh, I like that," and then I priced out a deck, and I priced out what was it, painting a room, or just a whole variety of things, and one of them was a package price for a garage. I had never done that before, and I thought, how hard could it be, right? So way back, I think it was 1989 or 1990, I put together a garage package, and it was, I figured all the materials and put that in, and my labor. I even did some extra things. Back then, I was doing electrical myself. You could do it back then. And so it included like 4 outlets, a motion light, tying into their breaker box, things like that. And the concrete slab, I didn't include the excavation work because that was such a variable. Couldn't really figure that in. So I got that all figured out. Got a nice little leaflet put together to put in the newspaper. So back then it was, I think it was going to cost around $1,000, $1,200, which for me at the time was pretty big. Still is. But it was enough to get into a circulation of a local paper. I think so. The total cost, I think, was around $1,200 or $1,400 to get 8,000 flyers into a local newspaper. So that he says, well, you know what? He says, I'll give you the money to do that, to get it printed, get it into the paper, and see how it goes. And then he says, no, I'll loan it to you. He says, I don't want you to think it's a free handout. That was really, that just really impressed me. He could have just given me the money. He was pretty well off, but that was very wise in what he said. So, because it just gives you the realization of what money is by knowing you got to pay it back. So, I put the flyer in the paper on I asked the newspaper, what day is it like the best day to advertise? And I think back then it was like a Friday, and then they could see it over the weekend or something like that. Whatever day it was, I put it in and sat by the phone. That was before cell phones, really. And so I'm sitting by the phone that night, expecting the phone to ring off the wall, and there was no phone calls. I thought, oh man. I thought, surely the next day, the whole day, no phone calls. And I'm thinking, I just spent $1,000 or $1,500. I really need work. And I put the flyers up at like bulletin boards at stores and things like that. Day 3, finally, no, not finally, still no calls. 3 days, what is going on? And the 4th day, I got a call. Somebody inquired about a deck, and so it was like a 12, 8 by 12 or 8 by 16, I can't remember. And back then it was $1,500 for the deck, something like that. And anyway, they decided they wanted the deck, and so I started getting some work. And then, I don't know, it was this was early spring when I put this flyer out, knowing that building construction really ramps up in the spring. And then I got a call on a garage, and I met with them, and turns out I knew them fairly well. Well, not really, I knew them. And Sold a garage. The first one, 24 by 24 ranch, 2-car, wood overhead doors with the glass panels. They were, back then, that was the thing. They were the masonite doors. And 2 windows and a steel entry door. What else? Pretty much the package and the concrete and forming up the concrete. So I didn't have anybody working for me at the time. And so I went to build that. And the price at that time was $4,995, I think was the price I put on it. And so we built it, and my labor, I had figured it correctly, how many hours it would take me to build it. And so I was happy with that. And then I sold another one. And that first year I did 2 garages, and I don't know, I did 5 or 6 decks. And fortunately I never had to wallpaper a room or paint a room. Painting is not my favorite. Or staining. I don't like either one. I mean, I do it because it's part of the job, and I try to do a really good job with it. I don't know if you noticed, I'm not using the rag anymore. I'm putting it on a little bit thicker, so that means the ones that I stained the other day are going to have a different shade. But this is so much quicker than the other way. So I'll bury them somewhere under the bed area or something. So first year I did 2 garages, and I thought, wow, and it looked like at the end, after I figured up all my materials and all my labor, which was just me, I had $1,000 left over. And I thought, this is it. I've got my niche, my place I'm going to work doing. And everybody kept telling me, so I started specializing in garages, and everybody would say, there's not enough work around to do that. You can't do that. And sometimes I get a stubborn streak, and that just drove me more to want to do it, because I could see that it would work. I was covering a pretty good area, with I don't know how, 30, 40, 50,000 people in the area that I was going to work. I knew there was a market for it, so I pursued it. And so the next year I did it again. I think I went up a little bit on the price, but the second year I did 6 garages. And at the end, it was like, why don't I have like a lot of money in my pocket? And so then I stopped and I really looked at what was going on, and I was not putting in anything for overhead costs, such as my pickup truck and fuel and insurance, tool replacement, trips to the lumber yard where you couldn't bill your labor in the estimate. Just a lot of things like that. And I ended up finding that my overhead cost was about 20% more. So that's where it was going. So the next year I was up closer to $8,000 or $9,000 for a 2-car 24 by 24 ranch garage. And that was super competitive still. I would sell the garages because people would say, wow, you're kind of like cheap. It was a good quality product, but you're inexpensive compared to others. And I was happy because I was making a profit on it and covering my labor, and it was enough. So typically around here in the winter, there's not a lot of work. So you try to build a little nest egg to make it through the winter, to do it again the next year, and the next year, and next year. And so it started getting so busy, I needed to have some help. So I started using subcontractors. Even though they worked for me full-time, I was paying them as a sub. They carried their own insurance, things like that. Well, it really wasn't legal the way I was doing it. So I wanted to make sure it was right, so I called the state and set up an appointment and went back over the previous years where I had started hiring subs, and I paid all of the back taxes on them. And then, so I got everything straightened out. And wouldn't you know it, they want to do an audit. I mean, I contacted them to get everything straightened out. So, I mean, I got through the audit fine. It's just that I all of a sudden showed up on their screen and they wanted to talk to me. So, anyway, so that's, I got through that. And then I started regularly having employees. I think at one point I got up to about 11 employees. And that was just too much because it is a skill that you have to have. And most of them, a lot of them didn't have the skill. They were learning a lot. I think over the 35 years that I did this, I think there were 8 or 10 that ended up going out on their own doing construction after they had kind of learned some things, how to do it. So 35 years later, I retired, maybe some number of years, semi-retired. Now I do this. I don't actually mind just doing this staining across here. I mean, it's not really strenuous. It's not like going up on ladders and just climbing up, carrying stuff up, coming back, coming down, getting tired. This is nice. After a few hours, I can just take a break if I want to. I'm not quite there yet. It's still early in the morning. But I need to get this done because it's kind of holding up the work inside the Vardo. So it wasn't all easy. There were difficulties along the way, but it just had to persevere and get through it. And then I built quite a few houses along the way. I didn't really enjoy doing houses as much as I did garages because I kind of like to be there a week or two and build a garage shows up quickly and you leave and the customer can enjoy their life. I'm out of their hair and move on to the next one. So I really liked that aspect of it. That's working really well. And it's a lot quicker than trying to use a rag. I should count how many of these boards I have to do, but I think it might discourage me a little. But I can see the pile over there. I will count. You know what? I'll finish this board. I'll shut the camera off for a minute and I'll be right back. I'll tell you how many boards we have to do. I was right. There was 350 something over there, still wrapped up, and I've got maybe 50 unpackaged and stain already. So pretty close to 500, 400 and something. But this brush, it's really going a lot better. I just have to stir that occasionally, make sure it stays mixed up. Can't wait to put this on. It's going to look really sharp. So I think as far as being in business on my own, it was the don't give up, even though, there's obstacles even in just, in a, say, a regular job. There's just always something. And I wanted out of that climate. I didn't like the climate I was in. So I love this, and I tried to make it good for the employees to, I don't know, I probably got cranky at times, but in general, I like to have the attitude more of, hey, let's have fun, let's do this, and make it an enjoyable event. Okay, so I don't know, 350 more to go. And I don't know what else to talk about as far as my business. If you have any questions about that, I'd be glad to comment maybe on another video and talk about it as far as what you might experience being, well, my experience as a building contractor. I did a few other types of jobs, but that's a whole other story. When I first, okay, all right, one other thing. When we first got married, we moved to Maine, Rockland, Maine. How many have ever been there? Well, I worked for a tree climbing company. That was the first job I could find. We had an apartment, and that was an experience. I learned a lot about hard work. It looks simple when you're alongside the road, just trimming trees and whatnot. But I'll tell you what, that's good, honest work. By the end of the summer, I noticed like those signs of men working. They were wooden. I don't know how much they weighed, but they were up at this height on the side of the truck. You had to pick them up and take them down. And it was a struggle at the beginning of the season. But by the end, I was just like, yeah, throwing them around. Really built some strength there. Okay, anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to keep staining and try to get a whole batch of these done. And so we can move out and do the Vardo. This is a perfect day because it's only like 40 degrees Fahrenheit out there right now. It's not real hot. I may turn the heater on when I'm working in there. That would be fun. So see you later. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Thanks. See you later.